Move your chair, darling. You're in the way. The words oozed with mockery, followed by the dry, hollow chuckle of two broad-shouldered men in wool caps and heavy overcoats. They loomed over Eleanor Hayes's small table at the corner of Whitmore and Sons Coffeehouse, their shadows spilling across the white tablecloth. She looked up slowly from her tea, her face calm, her eyes sharp as a winter's blade. Outside, the rattle of carriage wheels over cobblestones mingled with the distant chime of the town clock. Inside, the hum of conversation, the clink of china, the hiss of the brass espresso machine, all seemed to fade into a tense hush around her table. Before we move further into this story, I said, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear. Let's dive in. Eleanor had been in her wheelchair for 3 years now, ever since a mortar shell struck the ambulance she was driving in the Great War. She had endured stares from strangers before, but mockery, especially from grown men, still struck deep. There's room enough for you to pass, she said evenly, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her chest. One of them leaned closer, his breath heavy with gin. Bet you're used to folks helping you about. The nurses still treat you like one of the boys from the front? His companion reached down without asking and plucked a tea biscuit from her plate. The low murmur of the coffeehouse stilled entirely, that strange quiet where everyone listens but pretends not to. Eleanor didn't flinch. She sipped her tea slowly and set her cup down with precision. You gentlemen might want to rethink this, she said. They didn't. The taller of the two thugs shifted his boot forward, nudging the wheel of her chair. What's that emblem there, eh? He asked, pointing to the stitched insignia on the leather pouch at her side. It was the badge of the 13th Field Ambulance Division, 2 crossed stretchers over a red cross. Eleanor's lips curved into the faintest smile. It's not mine, she said. Their brows knit in confusion. It belonged to my unit, she added. They scoffed. One muttered something about war stories for sympathy. Eleanor tapped her walking cane twice against the wooden floor, a sound barely louder than a heartbeat in that room. Then she returned to her tea. A full minute passed before the bell above the coffeehouse door jingled. The door didn't just open, it filled. 5 men stepped inside in unison, each in dark greatcoats, their boots thudding on the floorboards with deliberate rhythm. Peaked caps shadowed their eyes, but the silver pins on their lapels gleamed in the lamplight, the crest of the Royal Medical Corps, worn only by those who had seen war's worst and returned. The tallest of them spotted her instantly. Matron Hayes, he said, voice low but carrying enough weight to hush the last whispers in the room. Eleanor allowed herself the faintest smile. Took you long enough. The 2 men who had been leaning over Eleanor straightened abruptly, their confidence cracking as the soldiers approached. These weren't constables or retired watchmen. They moved with the silent certainty of men who had walked through fields of fire and carried the wounded home. One of them, a bearded giant with hands like coal shovels, stopped beside the taller thug. Is there trouble here? His tone wasn't loud, but it was final. The thug stammered something about just talking, but his voice wavered. Eleanor set down her teacup. Gentlemen, these 2 were curious about my badge. I thought perhaps you could explain it to them. The smallest of the soldiers, still broad as a doorframe, took a single slow step forward. You see this woman? He said evenly. She's family. You don't touch family. The word family landed like a judge's gavel. It carried memories of gas masks and field tents, of nights when death sat at the next cot over, of loyalty forged in the darkest hours of war. The thug's eyes darted from Eleanor to the wall of greatcoats surrounding her. Without another word, they stepped aside and slipped toward the door. The soldiers didn't follow. They didn't need to. When the door closed behind them, the clinking of china slowly returned. The waitress brought Eleanor a fresh pot of tea on the house. One of the soldiers pulled out a chair and sat beside her. "You all right, matron?" "I'm fine," she said, her voice softening. "But I appreciate the company." And in that moment, it was clear, the war might have ended, but the bond between those who had faced it together never did. Real strength isn't about who can shove you around. It's about who shows up when someone tries.